Well, I've left the Hillsboro, Portland area, the state of Oregon. I left there yesterday evening, and actually was quite sad in a way. I'm excited, obviously, for the next part of my journey, but really just the most amazing group of people down there. Grant, who is the executive director of the schools that I was working with, has got just this amazing team of people. I can't stress enough how important it is for a system to work, to have great people, and absolutely top to bottom he has that. Is people who are in leadership positions or who are travelling around working with the schools, offering them extra support and things like that, are really outstanding. And then just all the principals who just really impressed me, the way that they work, the kind of role that they play is very much a kind of like a coach on the field. I think that's how myself and Grant kind of discussed it. Like, they're not just in their head teacher's office, as we would call it, with issues coming to them. They're active, they're in lessons, they're in and out, they're moving around the building a lot, picking issues up as well as doing all the management and the staffing issues and everything else, and they're across everything. So just seeing that was great. The first couple of days I already talked about. The last couple of days it was fascinating to see some specific pieces of work. So there was a remand centre effectively that I saw, which was for young people who were on remand waiting to go to trial, and that was really interesting. And they're trying to bring in the wellness centre idea there as well, which is I thought was a really good idea, and just sort of made me think of some of the services we've got. My reflection really from the whole week in Portland was we're lucky in Lowestoft because we've got loads of really amazing people working in mental health already, and lots of people who are interested in kind of getting involved with peer support. That to do really effective peer support, you need to model from the top down, and that's a real big lesson for me, that I need to get far better at modelling like a proper trauma-informed way of working, because I know that I have a tendency, I do a lot of work on my own, I rely on myself a lot, so that does tend to mean that sometimes my communication isn't always the best, and sometimes I do things in a bit of a hurry, a bit of a last minute, and all those kind of things, but that isn't keeping in mind the people around me, and I can't expect everyone to understand this model if I'm not executing it. So I need to really bear in mind the part that I'm going to play in taking this forward and being trauma informed, and changing the way that I work, because I saw that really in those schools. One or two of the models that they use in the schools are really, really interesting. PACS is something that would be great to get a school in Lowestoft to try, because it's a behavioural model, but it's also very trauma informed. The quiet corners, which they use for children to go and regulate themselves after they've been to the wellness centres and kind of learn some of those skills. It was really fascinating to see the recess playtime. They have quite a short period of time to play over here. These kids are coming out for sort of 15 minutes after they've had something to eat, and to see Coach Carter, who is an awesome guy, and he is travelling around all of the schools working with them to make their recess time more trauma informed as well. And that's a big piece of work, because it's often, I suspect in our schools as well, I think playtime is almost a chance for traditionally for the academic staff to kind of, okay, we've got the kids out for a bit, we're perhaps resetting, and perhaps not that much attention paid to what's happening out there in terms of obviously bad behaviour, but it's actually a time when, if kids are learning regulation, if kids are learning how to interact with each other, if they're learning to be more able to cope with the ups and downs of life, and actually when that will be played out will be when they're out playing, because if they're getting into arguments and they're not able to resolve them, and they're not executing the skills they've learned through the wellness centre and through regulation. So actually it's really key piece of work that they're doing there. I just think it shows that they're looking at the whole system. And then it was just great because I got together with, it's lovely, they took the time to see me off, make sure I left maybe, on Friday evening. But just to see several of them together, still talking about what they're doing, and just the passion and commitment to it. And I think that's it. You need to have buy-in. You need to have leadership like Grant, who's just really passionate about the model and tries to kind of model it. You need to be really open to change and flexible. That's the other thing I saw, is you have to be willing to say, this is working, we need to try it. You can't just give up on something because after 3 weeks it hasn't worked. You've got to stick with it. But you also need to be adaptable to say, okay, in this school that model isn't working, so we need to try something slightly different. And so, the adaptability as well as the stickability. So I think they sound like they're in competition with each other, but they're really not. I think they've decided they want to take this approach, so they're sticking to it, even though they know that there's going to be challenge and difficulty around it. But equally, they've kind of been willing to change things and they're not stuck on one model or another, and they're so open to, the whole family process. I think that's the other thing, is that each child has got a family system around them, and so schools are a big touch point for many things in our country and in here in the States, and thinking about the opportunities that are there to affect the family. And then the last lesson, I think I'm going to sort of just take away. So last lesson I'll take, and I'll talk about a couple of other things. But last lesson I'll take away from in the schools, which I think is a really vital thing that they think about, and I think we should think about not just in school settings, but in all settings where we're bringing people together. The number of touch points between, when the kid gets dropped off by a school bus till getting in the classroom is something they really think about here, because as we heard from our friend Nicky Mernin when he came down, people saying hello to you and meaning it and asking how you are doing is actually a really big thing in terms of making you feel valued and making you feel less alone. And so they in schools have 3, 4, 5 touch points where they'll literally meet somebody and someone will say hello to them and check in with them. And I think that's really important. And I think, again, when we're holding meetings and things like that, and we know who the staff are or the volunteers are that are running it, I think making sure that everyone gets a greeting and making sure that that's kind of thought about actually is really important. I mean, think about it in our services that we run across kind of adult mental health and adult social care and things like that as well. Are we taking the time to make sure when someone comes to us, they're getting a greeting and they're getting known? And then the other thing, they try and know about people. The aim is to know every child by name, strength and need, and again I think that's so important for us in peer support. As the organisations that are perhaps trying to make this happen, do we know who they are, do we know what they need from us, and do we know what they're good at? Because if we know those things, we can work with them, and it's so important. So I think the aim to know the name, strength and need of as many people as possible who might feel that they need support with mental health, with resilience, with being adaptable, is a really important thing to do. The other thing that I think I noticed being up there was just that they've tried different ways of providing support to schools. So that's where the model they're very set on and they're very committed to. But in terms of the support that they're willing to give and how they give it, so this year they've got a new structure. They've got student success coaches who are going into individual schools and coaching individual kids and teachers to work with those kids and thinking of strategies and training, development days. Also then getting to know the schools, because they know each schools are different. They've got Coach Carter going in, who's looking at recess. So he was doing a bit of that last year, but that's a newish role. And then they've got other roles that work around supporting the guys running the wellness centres and all that stuff. So I think they've been flexible with their structure of leadership and administration to fit with where the model's taking them. And I think again that's really important, because I think so often in our systems we can be quite rigid about the system and the structure. But that means we're less fluid about, less rigid about how we're delivering a model that we really want to deliver. We're trying to fit it into the system that already exists. So as I say, I can't thank enough of the guys up down in, because they're down for me. I'm up in Seattle now, down in Hillsboro County. It's a really, really special place. Portland, just that is a big city just down the road, is an amazing, place. But the Hillsboro County Elementary Schools District is a really special place, and I've left part of my I think I've left a bit of my heart with them, because they've just made such a big impact on me. They're such wonderful people, and I'm hoping that we'll maintain a long-term contact. Perhaps we might even be able to buddy up some schools for a project or something across Lowestoft, wherever, because that would be a great thing to do. So I'm making my way slowly up to Seattle and then across to Walla Walla, where I have been asked to take part in a treasure hunt, a scavenger hunt, and I need to dress up as Winston Churchill. Fortunately, I do have a waistcoat or vest with my suit, so I'm going to make some effort. I don't think I'll probably be quite as good as the recent film version of Churchill, but I'm going to do my very best and try and make a top hat and a cigar, so my creative juices are flowing. But yeah, I'm here in a great little cafe in a tiny place somewhere outside Seattle, and I'll write a blog as well, but that's my 4th update.